zesty ranch chicken wings with some zesty ranch fries, homemade ranch sauce, got a little ranch theme here going on, some spiced apples, and coleslaw. So let's start. We've got our chicken wings here, we've got the tips cut off, and we're gonna just pat them dry, try to get up as much moisture out of them as possible because we want them to have a nice crispy skin on it, and if they're wet, they don't crisp up as well. So just pat them dry, use a paper towel here, and then once they're good and kind of patted dry, we're gonna throw them into our big bowl here. And I'm just going to pat each one dry as it goes in here to make sure we get all that extra residual moisture off. And then we're gonna spice these guys up with our ranch seasoning. We're gonna spritz it with some olive oil, a little bit of cornstarch, that's gonna help crisp it up. Some onion powder, just give it a little bit of a nice savory flavor as well. Here we go. Again, trying to pat them as dry as possible. And this is about 5 pounds of wings that we cut off the tips, so we're probably closer to, 4.5 to 4 pounds right now. Okay, we're done with our chicken wing thing right here. Give a quick wash. That way we can get on with our spices. So I'm gonna spritz these with some olive oil. You're gonna use about, a tablespoon or so, but I'm gonna just kind of coat them around. This allows me to just spread it a little bit more evenly with a little spritz over here. And then we're gonna shake on about a tablespoon of cornstarch. So I'm gonna shake this over. And we're gonna add in about a tablespoon of onion powder. This is gonna give it a nice savory flavor, also help it get nice and golden brown. And then the hero is our ranch seasoning powder. Just make sure this guy's open first. Yeah, I figured. And then we're gonna sprinkle them over. If you have the ranch packets, you're gonna use about, 2/3 of a pack. You could use it all if you want to, but since a lot of times I make ranch dressing, I save a little bit for it. But you're gonna sprinkle about 1/4 of a cup over this. So a good couple of shakes. And this is gonna have just a nice, wonderful flavor to it, and then go there. And now you just kind of have to go in with your hands and make sure everything gets kind of coated up with those spices and that cornstarch mixture. Here we go. And then we will sprinkle a little bit more ranch stuff over it at the very last part, but I like to make sure I get it thoroughly coated top and bottom for this as well. Okay. So, let me grab a baking sheet. I'm gonna lay these guys out, and then we'll spritz them one more time with a little bit of our oil and a little bit of powder, because when you're mixing it, some of it comes off, and you wanna have lots of flavor on all parts of the chicken, so you really gotta toss it, and then I always add a little bit extra for a little extra kick. Make sure your wings are not touching each other at all. So I'm using this really big baking sheet. It's a baking sheet and a half, and I like it because it fills up the whole top layer, like the whole layer of my oven, so you can get a lot of that direct heat on here. Spread these. And I've got one more. Make sure. And then I'm going to wash my hands real quick. We're going to spritz these again with our olive oil, and then we're going to give a good another little shake over of our ranch seasoning for it. This is just going to help it get a nice little crispy skin. go. And this is just one of those pump olive oils, so it's just olive oil. It's not like a Pam or anything like that. And then just be delicate when you're shaking it because you don't want it to be too covered. But a nice extra little shake over will add an extra bit of flavor. There we go.
You have a question? Do you ever put them in a fryer and do them that way?
You know, I don't ever really deep fry them. I do them in the air fryer, or my oven now has an air fryer setting, so that's what we're going to cook it on, is the air fryer setting in our oven. But most of the time, because I've got to do so many wings for our family, that doing them in like a Fry Daddy is just, takes way too long, because you know, you can't put in too many at a time or it brings the oil temperature down. So these are, I think, next best thing. Okay. And one good, there we go. Okay, let's go pop these guys in the oven. Then we're gonna prep up our home fries. And what we're gonna do with our home fries and our wings is they're gonna alternate being on the top so they both get a good crispiness. But we're gonna start with the wings on the top first. And these take about 20-25 minutes to get this fully cooked through and crisp up with the air fryer setting. If your oven doesn't have an air fryer setting, you can do convection bake at 425, and it takes roughly around the same time with it on that.
Can you go over what's on the chicken wings real quick?
Yes, so we kind of patted them dry, we spritzed them with olive oil, then we added about a tablespoon or so of cornstarch, a tablespoon of onion powder, and then we started with about like 1/4 of a cup of our ranch seasoning mix, and then we tossed them, and then we sprinkled them again with a little bit more ranch seasoning, and we spritzed them one more time so they can get nice and crispy on here. Okay, let's make our home fries here. We're gonna do a zesty ranch home fries as well. That will just be absolutely lovely. So I'm not going to peel my potatoes, but to get rid of the majority of the skins, I'm just going to just take off kind of the square, like square them out. That way I have less potato skins, which makes my kids happier. I don't mind the potato skins, but since they don't like them as much, just doing this gets rid of the majority of them, because when you cut them into the fry shapes, they're not going to get very much skin on each one. And it's just a little bit easier than having to peel them yourself. There we go. And then this one has a little bit of some roots on it, so I'm just going to cut those off. Okay, now we're going to do just our classic French fry on here. So I'm going to just first cut them into, you know, little flat discs like this, and then we'll cut them the rest of the way into our fry shape. Now these are a really great way to do oven baked fries or like air fryer fries that taste, they get pretty crispy, taste pretty darn good. I mean, they don't beat fried fries, but pretty close. And I have to say, I do have a Fry Daddy, and I need to break it out sometime and use it. But whenever I do use my Fry Daddy, I have to plan a meal that's like everything is fried. Because if I'm getting the oil out to use it, we're gonna use it all. There we go. Okay. So again, just good size French fry shape. Try to keep them as, you know, even in size as possible. You don't want any super big ones or fat ones because they won't cook up at the same time. I remember during COVID, when none of the restaurants were open, we were doing these Universal Yum boxes, which the country we had at the time was Canada. And, you know, they always have like a recipe in them, and the recipe that they had in there was Putin, like, you know, so fries with this gravy on it. And so I was like, we're gonna do this. So I fried, I like did a little kettle thing. I fried up the fries and made the gravy. And then I like went and I dropped some off at my mom's house, and she was like, I've been craving fries for so long. You know, once you can't get something, you then want it. I think that was the last time I made oil fried fries. They were so good. Okay, get this guy. And we'll get our last one out. Now, I will say 4 potatoes make enough fries to feed our family. My family's not a super huge fry family. They all like it, but they don't like a huge serving of them, which I think is strange because growing up, if we were to have fries, I thought that was the greatest thing ever. And one of my kids doesn't even like fries at all. She's a little crazy. But for us, this makes more than enough French fries for everyone, because I will say everyone has like maybe 10 or so French fries a piece. And these are bigger than a regular French fry, but they don't eat a whole lot. There we go. Okay, we've got our French fries cut up in here. We're gonna cover them with a little bit of olive oil. We need about, a tablespoon to 2 tablespoons in here. So a good drizzle over it. And today, a lot of times I season them with Lowry seasoning salt. But we're gonna do ranch and then a little bit of onion powder to make them a little bit more zesty. Just kind of brings all the flavors together. So we're gonna shake about a tablespoon or so over this. There we go. But we're also gonna sprinkle some onion powder, about a half a tablespoon. And then we're gonna put in just a smidge of flour, which I have right over here. This is gonna, when you coat this with the olive oil, it's gonna give us kind of like a battered fry to it, which is so delicious. You don't need as much as you normally would because the ranch seasoning has a little bit of a base in it. So like, I wanna say 2/3 of a tablespoon, so like 2 or so teaspoons. And then we're gonna get in here and we're gonna coat these guys up. The onion powder is gonna help give them a nice kind of golden color to it because of the natural sugars in the onion. And then of course you've got that nice savory flavor from it, and then the zesty flavors from the ranch. Okay, so I've got these nice and coated. And now the trick is you can't just dump them out on a baking sheet. You've got to make sure none of them are touching each other or they won't get crispy. If they touch another fry, they're not going to get crispy. So we're going to spread them out so each one has its own space on here. And that's going to allow them to really get a nice crisp up on them. So it takes a minute to kind of arrange them, but it is worth it. And again, this is why I like to use these really big sheets. Because I can fit so much more, and that top, when you're baking, that top one is the prime real estate in the oven because it gets the best heat. There we go. So we'll spread these guys out. And again, make sure none of them are stuck to each other either, because then wherever they're stuck will not crisp up. Go.
You have a question? Did you use any cornstarch for the fries?
I used flour for them. So I used a little less than a tablespoon of flour to help kind of thicken them up and give that almost like a batter-like. I prefer on my French fries, I like the flavor of flour over cornstarch. Now on our wings, we use cornstarch because when the cornstarch interacts with the fat on the wings that come out from it, it gives it a lovely like crispness that's just slightly different than with potatoes. I find with potatoes, cornstarch makes them a bit more chalky. Okay, just gotta find a few more spots to put these guys. But you can see how these potatoes spread out and they take up a lot of room. then I'm gonna go rinse my hands, and we can pop these in the oven, and we'll let them start to cook up. Okay. So when we pop these in the oven, I'm gonna put them on the top so they can crisp up nicely with that direct heat, and then we will bring them down and kind of rotate them after about 10 minutes, because if I had a baked good, the baked good always stays up on the top, but these ones, they can kind of divide and conquer and share a little bit of that direct heat. This will also help the chicken from getting too crispy.
O's wife sent you like a swan.
Oh, thank you. I love swans. So back in college, back in the day when my husband and I met at Iowa State, they have two swans there, Elaine and Sir Lancelot. They were not friendly swans. Okay, I'm gonna set my timer here for about 10 minutes, and then we're gonna rotate them again.
Is that air fry or convection?
This is air fry. So I find air fryer and convection on my oven are very similar. They have the same concept. Air fryer just does it a little bit better, but not every oven has it. So if your oven doesn't have it, just do the convection bake, which blows the air around as well, at 425. And you just kind of have to just keep an eye on it, but it takes about the same amount of time on there. Okay, let's get our apples up for our spiced apples. So I'm going to first quarter them, and then I'm going to decore them and peel them, because apple skin just never gets soft. It's just chewy. So you always want to take it off. I know there's some people out there who say it doesn't bother them, but that's a lie. Okay, so we're just going to peel the skin off. We're using some Granny Wrights. We're just going to do a lovely spiced apples, because I don't know why, but for some reason I feel like spiced apples go with chicken wings. There is no logical reason for that. I just feel like it does. So we're going to have spiced apples today. And I was just kind of figuring out, I'm like, ooh, what should we do for our wings? A lot of times I'll do a loaded fries with them on there. And then I was like, ooh, coleslaw. Coleslaw sounds good. Because it's kind of like getting, the little crudités with the blue cheese or the ranch dressing, but better. Okay. And I had to use what I had in my house. So we're going to get these peeled up. And then once I have about half of these already peeled, I'm going to slice them up and get them starting to cook. I'm going to grab a little bit of apple cider out of my fridge to put them in there, because cooking apples and apple cider just is so wonderful. It makes them a lot more, thank you, a lot more apple-y. I don't know. But it just really brings out that apple flavor. If you don't have apple cider, you can definitely use lemon juice to give that little bit of that nice tanginess. But apple cider makes it so much better. We did our little apple video, and I did lots of apple baking after we went to the apple orchard. And Torn was like, your apple cider, like I made the pie cooking it in apple cider instead of lemon juice. And he was like, you can't ever go back to using lemon. It has to be apple cider.
You got about 15 bless yous for the Sims.
Thank you.
And how often do you grocery shop?
I grocery shop. I try to make it just a week. But as my children like to inform me, they apparently say we never have any food in our house, which is not true. We have plenty of food in our house. But it goes once a week, but it always surprises me how fast it goes. Now, I always have a really loaded pantry with our basic staples, as well as, now this is a little crazy, but hold your judgment. I do have 4 full-size refrigerators. Yes, crazy. I know. I never intended to have 4 full-size refrigerators. But when we moved to this house a little over 10 years ago, we bought a fridge with us because we had a garage fridge at our old house. And then when we bought the house, and this is with the old kitchen, it was like 1980s fridge where the freezer was on top and everything like that. So we upgraded our appliances because we also had a really old stove. So then we had 2 outdoor fridges, which is actually great because one was a drink fridge and one was like my bulk produce fridge. And then we did a renovation on our kitchen about 2 years ago because we had like flooding happen, like a pipe burst behind our tile in our sink area and it flooded under the cabinets, and then there was mold, so we had to rip it all out. And then our refrigerator's ice maker thing broke on it, but it was so expensive to get the ice maker fixed on it, and you couldn't turn it off either, and it just like leaked. So we ended up moving that refrigerator outside to get a new one, and that is how we have 3 refrigerators outside and then our full one inside. And I will say, it may sound crazy, but it is wonderful. I have one's my meat refrigerator, one's our drink refrigerator, and one's my bulk kind of produce refrigerator. Because, you know, I buy bulk onions and carrots and potatoes, those basic staples. But that allows me to create almost anything I want when I'm cooking, because I always have the staples. And you just really just need spices and a little bit of differences in how you cook, you know, each thing. But you can make so many different meals with really the same ingredients. And that's why we never have the same thing twice. Okay, let's get these first set of apples and then we'll finish up peeling up the last. So I'm gonna add about a tablespoon, that's like a half a tablespoon of butter. I like a little bit of butter because I feel like it just gives it a wonderful flavor. And we're gonna add in about, I wanna say a half a cup of brown sugar, a light half a cup. You don't need to pack it in or fill it up all the way, but just enough to add a little bit more sweetness to this, but I don't want them to be super sweet. I like a little bit of that tang. And then let me grab my apple cider, because apple cider season, my kids never have juice, but when apple cider season is here, I do buy apple cider because it is so good. Okay, we're gonna add in about, I'm gonna start this on a high, like a 7. We're gonna add in like a tablespoon or so of apple cider. If you don't have apple cider, just use about a tablespoon of fresh lemon juice. Slide this guy in here. And then we're gonna add, of course, some cinnamon. I want about a teaspoon or so of cinnamon. And then I'm gonna give this a nice stir, and it will start to cook up, and then we will throw in our last bit of apples, but that way this bottom layer can start cooking on it. And cutting your apples nice and thin is going to allow them to cook up a lot faster than if you leave them really big. So when I do that, I will cut them this way, but I don't, when I'm actually, after I peel them, if you notice, I don't peel or cut them into slices the long way, because I feel like that makes too big of an apple. I do it this way, and that way I have nice, like really wonderful bite-sized apples. And then they have, and you get this nice little thin ones, and they cook up nice and get tender. And you don't need to get a mandolin out. That was one of those things that I remember when I was in high school. My mom bought a mandolin, you know, for not the instrument. We're not musically talented. But the cooking mandolin where it slices your veggies and whatnot really thin. And we were like, oh, this is the greatest thing ever. But it is a pain to clean and to assemble. And so to me, I was like, it's not worth it to try to get it out and put it all together when I can do almost the same amount of work in half the time, just doing it by hand. And if you don't need it to be precise, you know, exactly equal for each one, then this works. I'm gonna actually turn my burner. I realize I have it on the full one. So let me move it around to, that's the wrong burner, to the other side. There we go. This one's, my stove, it has, I picked this out because it has 2 big burners that also are little burners, which I like. A lot of electric stoves, they have like 4 different sizes burners, and I'm like, no, I want big burners, lots of big burners. Okay. And then we'll get these in there. And then we're gonna work on our coleslaw and our ranch dressing because I love to dip fries in our ranch as well as the wings. Just, who doesn't love homemade ranch? Okay, let's get these guys going. And then at the very, very end, I will toss in just a pinch of cornstarch because I will say my husband in particular and my kids, they like that jelly texture that cornstarch gives. You know, like that. You go to a gas station, I always, because my husband loves these, but those little apple hand pies, JJ's hand pies or whatnot. In the gas station, he loves those things that I swear are not great, but he loves those and they're jelly texture. So I always put a little bit of cornstarch in so he can feel like he's eating a gas station apple pie. Okay, we'll let those cook up. And while those are cooking, let's prep. I'm going to prep my ranch first because that needs to sit, and then we'll do our coleslaw. So for our ranch, let me grab, well, we'll grab a spoon on our way back. We're going to do our little shuffle now. That way they can share that top heat on it. And you get a pick. Sneak a little peek.
You have a question? What made you start doing this and sharing your cooking with everyone?
You know what? So we're gonna do our rotation here. First, I'm gonna move these guys up. There we go. Slide these down here. I'm gonna put 10 minutes on. And then everything should be done in about 10 minutes. So what made us start was just, I always had friends and family members always ask me for recipes. They're always like, oh, can you send me the recipe? Or you do this. And I also had friends who were like, will you teach me how to cook? Because I have been cooking since I was in middle school. And this is weird, but I know in high school, I used to bake all these goods for the high school bake sales. All the time, my friends would be like, hey, can you bake this for our little bake sale for it? And I'd do it. So I always loved cooking and baking. And then I just was like, you know what? Let's try it. And we started up in January of this year, and it's been really successful. It's been fun, you know, so it was just kind of a win. But I really did love, you know, I do really love cooking and I really love teaching, so it kind of gets the best of both worlds on here. So we're gonna add in our mayo here. We need about like a 1/3 cup or so for it. I'm not making a huge batch. But also the nice thing about making these videos is that it allows for my kids to have, if they ever want to recreate my foods or want to learn how to cook later on in life, they could always rewatch these videos because once it's online, it's, you know, out there forever. So it is nice for them because it's like a digital remember, so they can just remember me forever. It's always funny when like one of my nieces or nephews would be like, I saw you on there, or you're like a celebrity, and I'm like, I'm not, but it's always fun. So we have about a 1/3 cup of mayo. We're gonna do a 1/3 cup of heavy cream. If you have buttermilk, use buttermilk, but nobody has buttermilk on them in their things. But to get that same tanginess, you're gonna add a squeeze of lemon juice to your cream right on top here. And we're gonna let that sit for a little bit. It's gonna cause this cream to kind of turn into a creme fraiche. And that is gonna thicken it up, but it's gonna give it a nice tanginess that you get from buttermilk. And my 10-year-old daughter, Evie, will be happy with the remaining lemon. I told you she's the quirky one who doesn't like fries, but she'll eat a straight lemon up. Let's give these a quick little twist, or not twist, but a little stir here, and just kind of pat them all down. Here we go. And these are spiced apples. We'll know that they're done is when they all start to get a little bit more translucent. You see some are starting to kind of get brown and a little bit see-through. Those are more tender versus the ones that are still opaque. Those are gonna still be firm. And then for our ranch, we're gonna sprinkle this, and we're gonna add in about, we want probably about 1.5 tablespoons to 2 tablespoons. And again, if you're using like a ranch packet, I would use 2/3 of the ranch on a ranch packet with 1/3 going into some homemade ranch. Here we go. We'll give it a good mix, but you can see how this is like your dipping ranch, and it's going to be so delicious. Dip your fries in, dip your chicken in. Just gonna taste it, make sure I have the right ratios. Perfect. And then you just let it sit, and it kind of thickens even more, but it's wonderful. Okay, let's make our coleslaw here. We've got some lettuce, or not lettuce, cabbage. We don't need a whole lot of cabbage to make our coleslaw. I always say cabbage is one of those things, it's a great vegetable that lasts forever in your fridge, as long as you store it, you know. I always like to wrap it up in a paper towel so it doesn't get too much moisture on it, and then in my veggie drawer. But you can use it in so many different things. It doesn't just have to be coleslaw. Asian dishes in there. If you peel off the leaves, you can make some cabbage rolls. Use it in soups, like a beef and cabbage soup. Delicious. But we're gonna shred it right now. And I will say, a little bit goes a long way when you go to the shredding process, because it's a very tight-knit vegetable.
You have a question? Are there a lot of leftovers after each meal, and what do you do with them?
There is rarely any leftovers, mainly because I also cook for my parents. So anything that is a leftover, say that we didn't eat or my parents weren't here with us for dinner, it goes to them and they eat it for their like lunch and dinners. You know, I'm fortunate to live like really close to my parents, which is great because it takes a village to raise kids. And like I said, I took over cooking when I was in high school, for actually middle school, and then it was like full-time cooking in high school for my family. And my parents are both really busy academics, so I enjoy cooking and helping them out and being able to see them often, which is nice. And then they get all of our little leftovers.
Real quick, could you go over how you made the ranch sauce?
So the ranch sauce, we did about a 1/3 cup of mayo with a 1/3 cup of cream. We squeezed about a 1/3 of a lemon over it to give that nice tanginess. And then we added in about 2 tablespoons of ranch seasoning mix. Mix it up, let it sit. Delish. There we go. Okay, so we've got our cabbage in here. And now we're gonna do our carrots, and we also have some red onions, and then we'll make a little bit of a dressing for it.
You have a question. If you're using buttermilk, would you still add the lemon?
No, so I only add the lemon if I'm not using buttermilk. Buttermilk already has that tanginess to it, so you don't need it. But I find that if you don't add it when you use it, it just isn't the right flavoring. So I really love just that. It just makes, it's the perfect amount of acidity for it that really gives you that tanginess in your ranch dressing. Now, I always say buttermilk is wonderful, but unless you're making homemade butter, very few people rarely just buy buttermilk to have, even though it is great in a lot of baking. But I find that you can imitate almost essentially the flavor and the texture of buttermilk by just squeezing in a little lemon juice to your, like your cream. Okay. So we're gonna peel off some carrots here. These are just those like little rainbow pre-peeled carrots from Costco. And so normally I use a big one, but we got these little teeny guys. And I prefer to do little carrot kind of peels like this versus, you know how you can go and you can buy the shredded carrots at the grocery store? I always find that those are really dried out and really firm. And with a coleslaw, I really want my carrots to get tender as they sit in the dressing. It just makes those flavors so much nicer, and it makes it the overall coleslaw lovely. And it doesn't take much. So we've got our carrots here, and now I'm gonna just cut up a little bit of red onion. Red onion is optional. Not everybody puts it in their coleslaw. I like it because, again, I don't like a super sweet coleslaw. I prefer a mildly sweet, kind of savory coleslaw. You can see our, not our carrots, our apples are getting nice and tender here. Look, some of these right here are beautiful, nice and translucent. We just have a few more. I'm gonna just kind of pat them underneath that spiced cider that they're kind of cooking in. There we go. And let's get, we're just gonna take a small little chunk, kind of just like with my cabbage. Red onions are one of those great things that one will last you forever, because red onions aren't really great for cooking with. They're best served raw in salads, on burgers, in dips and whatnot. When you cook a red onion, they lose all of their flavor because they're more sweet and less astringent, and so they kind of get mushy and they get too mellow when you cook them. So save your like yellow onions, your Valdalias. Those are your good saute onions, your soup onions. Your red onions, salads and dips. Here we go. And then I'm just mincing it up because I like the little bit of the onion that pops here. I think it helps cut through the kind of the sweetened mayo dressing. So we're gonna add it in. It was about like a tablespoon and a half of minced up red onions, but not much. Let me grab a bowl so we can make our mayo dressing. And our thing's about to beep, so we should head over there and grab it because we're almost done with everything. Let's give this a good stir. And then, since it is done, let's go take a quick peek at them. Beautiful. Look at our gorgeous crispy wings and our crispy fries. I'm gonna come back for these in 1 second because these pans are heavy. But look how gorgeous they are. And that's the nice thing about kind of splitting the time with the fries and these. They don't get too much heat, which allows them to cook all the way through without getting too overdone. And we've got our nice crispy fries on here. But they are looking fabulous. They've got this nice kind of lovely here. When we flip them over, you've got this nice toasty, crispy edge on it. Let's whip up our mayo and then we'll have our nice wings. But this is, you get this nice dark brown color when you add the onion powder into your ranch mixture because it has natural sugar in it, which caramelizes in your pan.
You have a question? Are those sheet pans in your Amazon store?
Yes, these are my Nordic Ware extra large baking sheets or 1.5 pans. I absolutely love them. I'm gonna slide this guy all the way off. Don't want him to share that burner there. Okay, perfect. But yes, I do have them in there. I love these pans because they do take up that whole top layer of our, like the oven. So looks like we're gonna have just some perfect amount of mayo here. We're gonna put in about a 1/3 cup of mayo, because again, this isn't a super huge batch of coleslaw. So I've got about a 1/3 cup of mayo in here. We're gonna add in about, I wanna say, a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar, which is about 3 capfuls. And then we are going to add a little bit of sugar, but not a lot because I don't like a super sweet coleslaw. But you have to have some sugar to cut through the tanginess of the vinegar. So we're gonna put in about a tablespoon of sugar. So I always like to kind of do my vinegar and my sugar in equal amounts. Should be about a tablespoon. Beautiful. I'm going to turn these down low because they are just about ready. And then we're going to mix this up. And then I'm going to add just a little bit of garlic salt in here. Not much, but just a pinch. Because I feel like with the red onion and a little bit of garlic salt, it just works well. And then when I say just a pinch, like a half a teaspoon. You don't need much because mayo is already salty enough on its own. If you like a little bit of pepper, you can add some pepper in here as well. I'm gonna pour our kind of sweetened mayo dressing in here. And we're gonna toss our whole coleslaw with the red onions and our carrot ribbons. We're gonna toss it up. There we go. Grab just a smidge more out of here. Perfect. And then we'll just let that marinate. We're gonna finish up our apples and then we'll be ready to serve up. Okay, so we've got our apples cooking here. I have them on low, and now that they're nice and tender, you can see they're really flexible here, but still holding their shape, which is the perfect amount of tenderness. We're gonna add a smidge of cornstarch in here. And this is going to allow this sauce to thicken up. Now we added in the beginning, we added in about a teaspoon and a half of butter. That's gonna mix with the cornstarch and allow it to have a really wonderful texture. You need a little bit of fat in there. It gets rid of that chalky flavor. Here we go. And I will say, we added in about a teaspoon here, and that's all you need. As you can see, that sauce is already thickened up into a lovely kind of gel here that's holding on to our apples. Beautiful. So you see we've got this nice, really thick gel. So I'm gonna turn this off, and we are ready to serve up. Beautiful. Okay, let me first get our spatula here, and I'm gonna just flip up our French fries. I always like to, when I cook them, I like to form them into a nice pile because that prevents them from drying out, so it keeps them soft and tender but crispy at the same time. Beautiful. Okay, let me grab this and I'll plate, and we will be ready to serve up dinner. Okay, and I need some tongs. For dinner tonight, we have our crispy, zesty ranch chicken wings that we coated with our ranch, onion powder, a little bit of cornstarch, which gives you that nice crispy edge to it. Then we have our zesty ranch fries that we also coated in our ranch powder, a little bit of onion powder, and some flour to get that kind of battered texture to it. We have our coleslaw with our homemade sweetened mayo vinaigrette on it. Of course, we need to add a nice dollop of our homemade ranch to dip our fries in. And then let me smooth that over there because for the sweetened part of our dinner, we have our lovely spiced apples that I think are just gonna really bring that zesty ranch flavors all together. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us here. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I try to do live cooking shows every single day, kind of show you what we're making for our family and hopefully teach you guys something along the way. Again, we do upload all of our videos to the link on our page, so if you ever want to recreate any of these recipes at home, you can just go to that link, search for what we made, and then you can watch and cook along with us again. We also have a link to our Amazon storefront that has all of our different cooking gear and gadgets in it. I've got my big baking sheets there from Nordic Ware in there, as well as my Dutch oven, my cutting boards, my knives, all the different things I use in the kitchen. But again, thank you so much.